Okay, so as I'm oiling my hair, let me tell you story number 2
Los
of the
cuentos
supernatural.
del Finado
Like I've said before,
José.
Venezuela is a very supernatural place, and it's sort of like I always feel like it's a little bit like Appalachia, right? Like people understand that there's something going on a deeper level, and so a lot of the consciousness is an understanding that there's something a little bit beyond the veil. And that the ghosts and the supernatural embody spaces on the same timeline as we do here on the 3D level. So let's have a chat. This is a story that was passed down to me to everyone in my family. And to tell you this story, I have to tell you the story of our folklore. I have to tell you the story of La Sayona. So La Sayona, some say that this was a pre-Columbian story. The story I know and that was passed down to me was the story of colonial times. Now, Venezuela is this amazing place. It has every kind of weather. It has every kind of topography. It really is a little paradise. If you want to go to sand dunes, sort of like Saudi Arabia, we have that. It's called Los Médanos de Coro. If you want a beach, my favorite one is Morrocoy on the little islands. It's sort of like, think, Thailand, right? Like the little plots of lands in Thailand. Beautiful. I grew up going to Morrocoy, okay? That's my favorite place in the world. I'm definitely getting a plot of lands at some point. Anyway, we have beaches, we have rivers. Choroni, best place in the world. We have bays, La Bahía de Cata. We have mountains. We have, winter and summer and every weather under the sun. This story comes out of Los Llanos.
Mes de mayo en la llanura, olor a tierra mojada.
Los Llanos. Other people will tell you differently. There's different versions of the story, so mine is the one that I've been told. And in Los Llanos, which is where, there were large plots of lands, large plantations. And this is where, all the crops were growing. This is where all the, this is where, the food was being made, right? Animals were being, sent off. In one of these stories, in one of these towns, a beautiful, beautiful woman existed. And she was absolutely gorgeous, as Venezuelan women are. But this woman was so beautiful that, she was the most beautiful woman in several towns around that area. And people wanted to marry her. There were men that just wanted to marry her. This woman is gorgeous. I just want to put a ring on it. But she wasn't feeling it. Until one day, there was this young man from Caracas, because there's always the story always starts with a young man from Caracas. If you know, you know. Thank you. And he caught her eye, and she fell madly in love with this man. Eventually, they get married. They start a family. They have their little home on the little plot of land. And this is where the story really begins, right? One day, after she's had all these children, they started a family, they're established, they're happy, right? But the husband goes back and forth from Caracas to wherever this town is in Los Llanos de Venezuela. And one day she's taking a quick dip in the river, right, close to her home, when there's a man keeping an eye out. She comes out and she confronts him and tells him why are you here? This is completely inappropriate. What do you want? And he tells her, I'm so sorry. I found out and I needed to come to tell you. And she demands for him to tell her what all this nonsense is about, right? And he tells her that the gossip in town is that her husband is having an affair with no one else but her mother. And of course, she becomes infuriated, right? She becomes blinded by her rage. And in some versions of the story, she goes to her house first. And she kills and chops up her husband and her 2 children. And then she runs to her mother's house. And she does the same. And right before she ends her mother's life, this mother curses her for all eternity. In other versions, she runs to her mother's house and she finds them in bed together. And she ends up killing them, right, in the act, caught in flagranti, red-handed, as it were, and she kills them, right? And she still gets cursed right before she kills her mother. And eventually she also kills the children. But in whatever version of the story, she is a cursed being for all eternity to become a horrible, horrible third thing, not human, not animal, but this horrible being in the cross-section of animal and human. And so that's where this story begins, right? Now, there have been tales all across Venezuela of men who are philanderers encountering this being. And, you know, they'll see a beautiful woman and either she will ask for a light, you know, as she's smoking, gorgeous woman with long, luscious hair, beautiful, young, right? Or as they're taking long walks back home through long, darkened journeys, right? Long, darkened roads, long, darkened, areas of the woods. Eventually, they catch up to this beautiful woman, and either she asks for a light or they start to try to romance her. She doesn't speak. But eventually, at some point, obviously, these men under inebriated, situations, they start noticing that this woman gets bigger and bigger and taller and taller and taller. Some have even stated that she gets to be as tall as 7.5 feet. And that's where we're going to stop today. That's the story of La Sayona. Now, if you're a Venezuelan and you're going to tell me this story is wrong, you're wrong. Okay, this is a story I was told. There are different versions of this story. So just, calm yourself. I'm going to stop it there because I'm going to tell you the rest of the story and what happens to these inebriated drunkards and philanderers with Los Cuentos del Finado José. These are stories that were supposed to happen to like a long lost cousin, an uncle, but this uncle, his name was José. So, Finado means dead. So these are the stories of dead José. I'll see you in the next one, okay? And this little series is going to be short-lived. I'm not going to look for more stories. I'm just going to tell you the stories from, that I grew up on, that happened to my family, or that were, passed down about things that they experienced. Bye.